Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 305. Not last week, on Monday, Tom had his first solo show. And Tom, you were at number one.
I know. I feel like my career's peaked and I can just sort of retire now and just tell my kids about this time when my podcast did all right. It's quite good.
Do you know what? The funny thing is, because the iTunes podcast chart changes like all the time, so you could look and be like number one. Sorry, you could look and not be number one, and then an hour later you could be number one, and then you look back later and you could be like further down or whatever. So when I looked, you were at number one, and when I looked the week before, I wasn't number one. So we could have both been number one, or you could have beaten me.
We'll just take it that I beat you. It's fine. It's my time. No, it is really cool, and I do appreciate everyone for listening. So thank you very much.
So before we went on air, we were talking about kind of like personal development, which is what the past two Monday shows were about. If you haven't heard them, have a listen back. They are only 10 minutes long. And one of the things that Tom didn't get to talk about was his current training and nutrition. I sort of covered everything. Tom didn't. He sort of talked more from an education perspective, but really kind of laid the groundwork of what personal development is. So, Tom, I'll ask you the question now. What has changed for you in the last year or two with training and nutrition? Have you looked to push? Have you looked to simplify? Have you looked to optimize? Talk me through it.
Yeah, so my training, for people who haven't heard me mention this on the podcast, I basically lift weights. That's about as complicated as my training is. I'm hesitant to say that I'm a powerlifter in that I don't compete, but I do train to get my squat, bench and deadlift as high as I can for one rep. So I've been doing that for probably about 7 or 8 years now, I would say, sort of somewhere in that region. And to be honest, although I really enjoy it, and it's something that I always will do, I think, I know everyone always says this, but it's something that I can foresee myself doing sort of for the rest of my life. It's a hobby, I enjoy it. I do think at a certain point, you'll find, especially without having a training partner, that doing the same sort of training all the time gets kind of old. So although you're enjoying it, there's not that novelty there. The excitement isn't there when you go to the gym. You're looking forward to hitting the reps, but you're not like really looking forward to turning up. So I've decided to take up a martial art. So now I do Thai boxing, which I do twice a week at the minute. I'm hoping to maybe increase that in a bit, but for now I'm just trying to sort of condition my shins, because for people who've never kicked a heavy bag, it's not the most pleasant experience in the world. So I kind of spend half the week limping at present. But I'm finding it really interesting, and it's very engaging because it's learning a completely new skill. And I mean, learning a new skill is not something that I've done in ages in pretty much any aspect of my life. I'm quite a complacent person when it comes down to it. I have my things that I like doing, and I'll get better at them, but I'm not that exploratory. But yeah, it's engaging, and I'm having to think about it. And coaches, just even simple things like if I'm freestyling, so coach has the pads and he's just throwing moves at me that I have to then do. So rather than setting up from the start, it's like, right, we'll do a 1-2 and then we'll do a right hand and then we'll do a left kick. He just says the movements immediately before me doing them. And I find that so engaging, but it's actually mentally exhausting because I'm not that good. But what I'm kind of taking away from it is that it's really rewarding to be a beginner again. I've always been, as I say, training in the gym, and I like to think that I'm pretty good with technique and stuff, so I can kind of go in autopilot a little bit. But being a complete beginner in a completely new field means that not only do you learn quite a lot, you improve really quickly initially. So it's taken me 6 weeks to go from being absolutely hilariously horrendous to being just really bad. So, so now I'm finding that I'm getting that big boost and I'm getting that big motivation that I haven't had for a long time in the gym because I'm improving rapidly. I mean, at the minute with my lifting, it's taken me 6 weeks to add 2 kilos to my reps. But with this, I'm feeling session to session, my kicks are starting to come a little bit more smoothly. I'm starting to find it a bit easier to move around. But yeah, it's really cool. I mean, have you ever tried any martial arts?
I did boxing when I was at uni for a year, and it's probably the fittest I've ever been in my life. Loved it. I've tried MMA. I hated it. I don't like close quarter combat, as in like the kind of like wrestling, rolling, grabbing. Like, I don't like the idea of someone round my neck, like that kind of thing I don't like, but I'm happily put some gloves on and try and swap you across the draw.
Yeah. No, I haven't done any sort of clinch work or anything like that, which is kind of the Thai boxing equivalent of grappling, I suppose. But yeah, I'm finding the striking really fun. I'm really enjoying it. I have to say it is definitely getting me fitter. As I say, I've been doing it for maybe 6 weeks, and prior to that, I've kind of neglected my cardio for a while. I do enjoy indoor rowing, but I've pretty much ignored it since I moved house because the gym that I'm at now doesn't have a rowing machine. So I definitely noticed in the first session that my cardio has declined, shall we say. I was not very well, but yeah, it's coming back really quickly, and I definitely think that because of that fitness, it could be for a number of reasons, but I am feeling a little bit better day to day, and I don't know whether it's partly because of that.
Talking of training motivators, because I know yours are obviously slightly different to mine. Like, what keeps you in the back of your mind trying to hit like a heavier deadlift? Like, let's say your deadlift now is 230. What makes you want to get 235 and be willing to put in weeks and weeks and weeks and work to get that extra couple of kilo? What's in the back of your head?
At the minute, that's actually a far easier question than it used to be. So, a year and a half ago, I'll say I don't know. At the minute, about a year and a half ago, I hit some big maxes, then had about a week and a half off because I was on holiday. I came back and all of my lifts had dropped by about 20%, and I'm still fighting to get back to where I was, which I don't understand it. I think it was probably central nervous system burnout, just because I hadn't deloaded in a long time, and I probably hit some maxes that I shouldn't have gone to because I was a little bit overhyped, I think. So at the minute, the big thing that's got me going is that I know that I can probably deadlift about 260 on a good day. That should be about 20 kilos heavier. So I'm chasing the numbers that I was hitting before. To there, I think, to be honest, I think it's habit. I think it's habit and it's discipline rather than motivation. It's one of the sort of crap motivational memes that float about on Facebook. Like, anyone that knows me knows that I hate those. Like the motivational images where it's like a person running down a road and it says some really trite phrase on the front. Like, I hate them because I'm miserable and northern. But one of the ones that I did see was that it was discipline beats motivation. And I think that was a really cool quote, and it kind of speaks to me quite a lot because with training, it's something that you decide that you're going to do, and then you can just do it. I do firmly believe that there is some element of discipline there. Now, I know obviously that is me speaking from a position of having the privilege of not having time constraints and not having all of these other factors that would legitimately stop me from going. The only thing that would ever stop me from going to the gym is I don't want to. But for being in that position, I think a lot of it's discipline. It comes down to that. And I just think a while ago, I decided that I want to get very good at lifting. I haven't changed my mind. So that keeps me going, I guess.
Yeah, interesting. I think, we've talked about it before, the power of habit and how one positive action leads into another thing. And I think once you get into a rhythm, you don't really want to stop because you kind of feel that you will regress. You've got to a certain point as a person. And I actually think we're going to talk about almost like changing identity a little bit more with today's questions, because we've got some cool questions through, and I wrote some notes on identity, and I think there's almost, even with the training stuff, there's a risk of feeling like you're negatively changing your identity, you're moving backwards, and I don't think anyone usually likes to go backwards in life. Like, sometimes we feel it's circumstance, it's the world acting upon us, and that is a choice you make. You choose to let the world act on you and kind of almost be submissive to that process, or you remain kind of dominant in that process and so, no, I'm not allowing the world to act on me in that way, and you kind of draw on your process of habits and that kind of stuff. But, mate, why don't we dive into the questions and see where things rock and roll?
Yeah, let's have a look. So the first question starts with, hi, Ben and Tom. So, hello. Before I start, I just wanted to say thank you so much for you and the team for putting together such a good podcast. My daily routine is a 45-minute walk listening to you guys. I love it, which is a lot better than my other half's voice, which is ironically what my question is about. So, I'm 21 this month. In the last 2 years, I've really grown up, and I'm proud of what I've achieved within my business within the last year and a half. I've recently just become self-employed. A personal trainer for around 1.5 years. Since the beginning, I've loved it. I live and breathe my job. I also believe this is what I'm going to do permanently. Therefore, I put a lot of hard work and effort into it. My girlfriend is very insecure about her weight and has a very hard time dealing with the fact that I'm a PT. She's constantly messaging clients and sometimes even portraying this on my social media pages. It makes me feel like crap, and anything I seem to do, whether it be checking up on my female clients or messaging somebody back, seems to be a massive problem. She's even deleted my clients off the page and blocked them so I can't talk to anyone about this, as I know it'll just get a biased opinion, so I thought I would ask you guys and let me know what you think. Thank you very much Thank you for a long-winded message. You guys are great. Keep it up and keep the beard strong. Awesome subs are great, by the way.
Okay, this is a great question, and actually one I'm familiar with because it wasn't too long ago I was talking to a friend very much about this kind of comment, and I think this is a bit more common than people kind of admit, especially when people are in the fitness industry and the partner can feel bad or insecure because they almost feel like they have to be or look a certain way because that other person is like into fitness. So, you know, if a personal trainer's got abs and, you know, really looks like they work out, it's almost like the partner feels like they have to be maybe close to that image because there's an expectation there. And obviously the expectation is all in that individual's head. Now, let's go through a couple of quick points here. Now, you genuinely have to ask yourself, and I'm going to be straight up, you've got to ask yourself, is this the person that you want to be with? Like, you're 21, and when I was 21 I was not sure what I wanted, and you know, lots of things happened with me being in young relationships and I was in no place to settle down. If you are, then that's awesome. If you love her, then that's awesome, but you have to consider, is this the right kind of person that you want to spend your time with? If it is, I genuinely feel you are probably never going to be able to help her directly. Like, it's almost like you're too close. You can try and stimulate that process a little bit, but especially when you're quite young, I think it's very hard to have such a raw and open relationship where you can really help each other evolve as people. I just rarely see it. That's not to say that you can't be that couple. So you're going to have to somehow have good chats, good open chats with your partner to say, do you know what? I think you need to develop in this area. I think you need to work at learning how to love yourself. Like, if someone's that insecure about you know, messaging a client, and if that client's female, then, you know, that is a problem. That's not a healthy habit where someone's going, oh, I'm going to have to go and have a look in his phone because, you know, what are they saying to each other? Granted, if you have a history of that and that person now has it in the back of their mind that you might be doing foul play because you have a history there, then part of that is maybe your fault because you've done it in the past. But if that history is not there, then it is on your partner to maybe look to explore that area of her mental well-being, because it's never really it's not gonna just sort itself out.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and I've kind of jotted a few things down, and the big one that I've written down in capital letters and underlined is history. So I will say that for the gentlemen out there, if you do have a history of this, it's kind of to be expected that there will be a certain amount of insecurity that's kind of unavoidable. But let's work on the assumption that that's not the case. What you mentioned I thought was really good, in that it's going to have to come down to open communication and just complete honesty. Like, it would be very beneficial, in my opinion, to sit down with your partner in a neutral position. So don't do this off the back of a fight. Don't do this in a way that you're coming across really confrontational, because it comes back to what we said on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, which is, if you ever are approaching a conversation like this with your partner, especially one that there's going to be some friction there, you need to remember what it is that you want at the end. What do you want out of this conversation? Do you want to fight, or do you want to have something that's productive so that you can both go away and kind of work on it? So it's got to be neutral, it's got to be friendly, and it's got to be open. You've got to be open to her potentially saying, well, I get jealous of this because you're always messaging them during the time that we're together and it makes me feel not wanted, at which point you then have to take that on board and say, well, okay, that is a failing in me. This is something that I'm doing wrong, and perhaps I should be messaging my clients during a specific work time rather than during the time that me and my girlfriend are together.
Yeah, great point.
Things like that. So you always need to remember that actually you might be at fault, but then at the same time, as Ben mentions, you might not be, in which case it would be worth finding out what is it that your girlfriend is worried about? What is she considering that you might be messaging to these people? And if that's the case, then speak to her and just say, well, if you're a personal trainer, how can you possibly run your business in any other way? Every other personal trainer runs the businesses like this, so this isn't an unusual thing. This isn't you pretending to be a personal trainer as kind of an affront so that you can have 10 affairs with 10 different people. So it comes down to finding that and sort of working out what are the facts, where do things lie, and is she ever going to be able to accept that? Because if not, as Ben says, there may be bigger problems and the solution may be a little bit more obvious than you might want it to be.
Amazing point about almost the attention. The parallel example is maybe you're in a meeting with a friend, you're out for coffee, and you're checking your phone every 5 minutes. When, like, if there's something that's important that's happening in your life and you need to check your phone, then obviously tell that person so that they know that there's a reason that you're doing it. But if you're in the company of someone else and you're constantly diverting your attention to something else, then that person is naturally going to go, well, how much value do they place on my time and affection here? Like, if I'm constantly sitting next to my partner checking my inbox, then my partner's rightly going to think, oh, what is more interesting than being with me and engaging in that moment? So yeah, there's definitely some potential for both. I'm not going to say to be at fault, like both to have things to work on here, and hopefully somewhere in that there's a solution for you.
Yeah, I think we covered that quite well. I think we should probably leave that one there.
Yeah, we should probably also not expand on it because we are far from relationship experts.
Yes, this is it. But yeah, I hope you found that useful because I can imagine that is not a very nice position to be in.
No.
Cool. So we'll move on to the next one. So, hi Ben, Happy New Year. So this email's been around for a while. Apologies for the late inclusion. We do get a lot of emails. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing the podcast on the hardest year of your life. It's amazing to hear such honesty from someone such as yourself, someone who a lot of people would assume has no worries and has everything easy because you've made it. It's a really important message for everyone to remain honest with themselves, and I really feel I can take that forward in my own life. You're a huge inspiration, and your work is one of the major reasons that I'm pursuing my own career in nutrition. It's humbling to hear that someone with so much success still has difficult moments, but it's also a great reminder that those moments are temporary and that we always have the power to take action to create a better reality to ourselves. Keep up the great work. Big things ahead for you, I'm sure. I'm early in my career and doing my qualifications and looking to move into nutrition consultancy, specialising initially in corporate wellness. Newbie Nutrition, so that's B with a double E.com, is my website if you or your team want to check it out. And I will continue to look at your work and draw inspiration and knowledge from it. We have a shared motivation to help others, and I hope the year ahead brings you huge success. Many thanks, Marcus Baxby.
So the reason why I kind of included that is, there was some really interesting keywords in that question about people's perception of where someone else is. And, in the world of social media, it's very easy to analyse someone else's position. And unless someone is in a position where they are really opening up, and hopefully on this podcast we are opening up as much as possible and being as honest as possible, you never really know, and you always just assume that someone is in a better position than you, because I think that the brain naturally wants to protect itself, so it's always looking to kind of sort of protect itself emotionally so that it doesn't ever feel really that vulnerable, and it's put itself out there and kind of risking a failure. And the reason why I maybe had a really tough year last year is because I'm willing to put myself in a position where I'm constantly going to fail. And, you know, some people might look at me and say, oh, wow, yeah, awesome, that's successful. But, you know, we've all got our own interpretation of success, depending on what your values are as a person. Success for you might be having a child and it being really healthy and bringing it up to just, you know, be part of your family and have that kind of reward of bringing someone into the world. Someone else, it might be career-wise. Someone else, it might be relationship, having like a meaningful and enriching relationship. Like success is very, very, very subjective. And I find the kind of study of the human brain and people an absolutely fascinating subject, because like me and my partner, for example, we're really different people. And just me constantly understanding my partner's motives aligned with my motives and how they can constantly work in tandem, because I'd say me and my partner have worked a lot as a couple in learning about each other, but we're both going to constantly evolve as people, and we've got to keep like almost checking ourselves and saying, okay, are we in alignment? Like, do we need to talk about anything? Like, are we both satisfying each other's like life goals and, you know, what it feels to be successful like as a person? You know, my partner is very much a family person, emotionally driven, wants to provide and care for other people, where I'm quite career driven. You know, I'm not going to say I'm not emotional, but I'm not at the same level she is. She's a very caring person, just naturally a provider in her blood. And I just find it absolutely fascinating. So hopefully this podcast has talked quite a lot about, you know, what people's own success should feel like and look like. And I just want to make people aware that you create that in your own brain and you're allowed to shape it however you want. And hopefully the fitness industry and positive things like this podcast just gives you ideas and inspiration of how it should maybe look for you, rather than comparing yourselves to other people.
That was really cool. I'm trying to think of something to add to that conversation, but to be honest, I think you covered it all really well. Is really common to sort of see when people do look at others, especially on social media. We always, I mean, we've said this a million times, people post on social media their highlights and they just brag about things a lot of the time. A lot of the time it's a subtle brag. But if someone buys a new car, they're going to post that. Someone buys a new house, they're going to post that. And you can often find yourself thinking, God, I'm falling behind here. But I think it is important to sort of take stock and think, well, is buying that Lamborghini the thing that you're really bothered about, or do you have things quite good? And it's quite important to look at how successful you've been so far and just sort of not take that for granted, because if we're always looking to achieve the success of other people, or even always look to achieve the success that we want eventually, then it makes what you've done already seem a little bit less than it is. And if you've already got some success in your life, reflect on that, because it makes all the difference.
I'll tell you what's interesting is the way that individuals become motivated, because you talked earlier about these kind of like motivational memes that you see. And I have, especially in the last 18 months, tried to connect a lot more with things that motivate me, because I've found that as things get like tougher in my life, you have to draw on those motivators more regularly. So when I was younger, I was so self-motivated that like literally nothing could get in my way. Like I was very selfish, very driven, like things were on my terms. And you can't do that as much when you get older. Like things just get a bit more complicated and a little bit messier. And actually, as you go through more of these peaks and troughs, you have to know where you draw that motivation from. So there's loads of people in the world that focus their attention on motivating others, whether it's someone like Tony Robbins or Richard Branson or Grant Cardone or Robin Sharma. Like there's loads of people, and they all take a different angle on motivation. Some are very direct. Some talk about working hard, not sleeping, 10x, hustle, all that kind of stuff. And then other people talk on a more emotive level and try and kind of get a bit more into your soul, a bit more into your core. And what I want to pick up on is there's no perfect way to be motivated. I just want people to explore how they become motivated and when they need to draw on it. Like, I'll get up some mornings and be like, do you know what? I'm feeling a little bit flat today. Why? Okay, not really sure. Perhaps there is a reason. If there is a reason, then I try and address it. And it might just be that actually I go to something that I find motivational for me, and I spend 5 to 10 minutes using that energy to increase my motivation because I know it's going to have a positive effect on my day. And what I use might work for 20, maybe 30% of people. What Tom might use, again, might work for 20 or 30% of people. And we all work very differently. And I think it's important to explore your motivators. Like, one motivator for me actually is music. And there's certain musics that I listen to where I'm like, I just can't not tap my feet, and it just changes my mood. But quite often we get so focused on how we're feeling and maybe we're not sure why, and we kind of go into that dark hole rather than standing back and going, no, right, I don't feel great. What motivates me? Bang, turn it on and just go with it. And it's like knowing and having these go-to sources of motivation is important for people to kind of almost check yourself and just dive into that environment before it gets hold of you. I did a seminar actually a couple of days ago at a massive gym, and I was talking to people about environments, and sometimes people are not sure what needs to change in the environment and how to go about it. And I said sometimes you've got to just model yourself on other people in other environments. So if you looked at CrossFit and thought, man, I think CrossFit looks so motivating, like people are throwing weights around and they all seem happy and they've got abs and shit, I want that. Well, rather than trying to create it and learning how to morph that, just go and join the best CrossFit box in your area and literally just go all in on that environment. And sometimes it's, even if you don't know, you've just got to go in, you've just got to do it, you've just got to turn on the music, or you've just got to put on the podcast, or you just got to put on your shoes and go for a run. Like, whatever it is, you need to identify your go-to sources of motivation and just be able to turn it on so you can change your state. And that's one of the things I love about Tony Robbins. He says, look, we all need to have the capacity to change our state, because where focus goes, energy flows. So if you focus harder and harder and harder on feeling crap, your focus and energy will just accumulate into this crap feeling. So how do you quickly shift your focus, whether it's a mantra, meditation, music, song, whatever, because then your energy is going to go there.
I really like that. I've got to ask, what music is it that you put on when you need to be motivated?
It's quite like vocal, drum and bass.
Vocal drum and bass.
Yeah.
I was not aware that that is a thing, because...
Well, the reason why I say vocal is a lot of people think drum and bass is like this do like. So I always say vocal because I like especially like female vocals in drum and bass because it's more engaging.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because I listen to metal almost exclusively, so I know nothing of drum and bass, and that is the exact opinion that I had of it.
Exactly. And I bet if I played you some, especially that might be in the charts or something like that, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's okay, yeah, cool.
Probably. I think you get that with most music. Like, people always say that they have a really certain taste.
Yeah.
But I think if they actually listen to something that's not objectively rubbish, they're like, yeah, I wouldn't listen to that normally, but yeah, it's quite good.
Yeah. It's like metal. My instant assumption of metal is like, rah, boom.
It's not far off.
And that's not. I know it's not. I know there's loads of different classifications of metal, and like I used to listen to rock metal as a kid and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Should we get the last one?
Sure, man.
Awesome. So, hi Ben. I just had to take time out of the final year revision because I really have to thank you. I've just listened to your latest podcast, and as usual, absolutely love your honest and raw approach. I know you're a busy guy. I'll try and keep this as concise as possible. Failed.
Don't be nasty.
I stumbled across you through Alice Living around 2 years ago. I was just coming out, or thought I was, of a really dark period of my life where over 18 months, both my grandparents and my dad passed away. Family dynamics left me as the natural leader and the strong one, so I just got my head down and got on with life. I then managed to get glandular fever, which knocked me out physically for a long time, but I still dusted myself off and cracked on. Recovering from this is where I find my passion for fitness. QU. I found your podcasts, and whilst primarily I started listening to them to aid my newfound love of fitness, On a secondary level, they made me really look at myself and my mental state. In actual fact, I ended up having a mini breakdown, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I finally was shouting, "Help, I'm not okay." I repeated a year at uni to give my mind the time and space it needed, and have been growing ever since. Without actively doing so, I've removed myself from so many toxic influences from my life and am now surrounded by like-minded, positive people. Having never had a positive relationship before, the way you talk about women opened my eyes to how poorly I was being treated by men. And now, just recently, I've started a relationship that is just so positive and makes me grow so much as a person. Listening to your last podcast, it's clearly been a shitter of a year for you. But your ethos has helped so many other people move through their own shitters, so just practice what you preach and you'll smash 2018. Lastly, thank you for taking the risk with awesome supplements. I religiously take Daily Dose, and it's the thing that has finally helped me start rebuilding my immune system, which, despite a pretty clean diet, has never fully come back since glandular fever. There's ailments I had that the doctors had given up on and just told me wait until my immune system got stronger. Helpful. That have now suddenly started clearing up, and Daily Dose is the only change I made. Okay, I'll shut up now. A massive thank you, and I'm looking forward to the next instalment. I don't actually have any requests because I love being a surprise and bringing aspects that I never think about to my attention. Emily.
Well, Emily, keep going. That is absolutely amazing. And do you know what? That is the number one bit of feedback we get from Awesome Daily Dose, is that people find they don't really get colds that much. People say it so often, so that's awesome. I just want to pick up on one really cool sort of comment that you made, and you said, recently I've started a relationship that is just so positive and makes me grow so much as a person. And I think if we look back to the first question we had today, where there was that kind of relationship dynamic we talked about, we've got to look at our environment and see if everything in our lives is allowing us to grow. It's like, you know, if we're in a relationship and that person is kind of almost weighing you down, you've got to ask, is that positive? Like, my relationship with my partner, I have to let her grow as a person. She has to let me grow as a person. Otherwise, over time, somewhere at some point, there's going to be resentment. And then we feel angry to each other. And then if we don't talk about it, this anger boils up. And then we're just not enjoying our time together. And how much do we see that in relationships? We're just not allowed to grow. And there has to be that space. You know, think about other relationships with friends and stuff. Are they allowing you to grow? If not, are they people that you want to be friends with? Is your work environment allowing you to grow? Coming back to that CrossFit analogy I made, like CrossFit, for me, and a lot of these kind of community-focused fitness systems, they allow people to grow. Like, there's no shackles on someone's potential. Come into our gym and grow as a person. And that's why you see so many amazing people do so many amazing things, because we're just allowed to grow. And sometimes, if you're not sure if your environment is allowing you to grow, you've just got to throw yourself into a new environment and test yourself. It's like your career when you're younger. If you're not sure what to do, just try loads of stuff. Like, go and work in a shop, or go and work in a different environment. Okay, go and work in a bar. Okay, go and get a job in, you know, this place. And just say, oh, actually, now I've found what I want to do. And there's no harm in doing that, but you have got to try and be willing to be objective and move away to grow then next as a person.
Yeah, very true. It's strange as well, because people do often prevent themselves from growing, because we always get this fear of, oh, what if it doesn't work? And while a lot of the time that might be sort of somewhat justified. So, for example, if you have got a mortgage and you decide to just change careers on the spot, that's probably got a bigger chance than most things of not particularly going well. So we do need to make sure we lay this groundwork. We do need to make sure that we're not just diving into stuff, but provided you've done at least some groundwork, then those decisions can be fine. And then when you scale that back and think, oh, I'm not sure if I want to join a CrossFit gym, that kind of pales in comparison to greater decisions that people have to make. And it's, as you say, if you throw yourself in, you will find yourself grow as a person. And it's also probably a useful kind of litmus test to find out if there's anything that is holding you back. So if you're in, as you mentioned, a relationship and you're feeling that perhaps this person is not the person you want to be with, or perhaps your friends aren't the people you want to be with because they're preventing you from growing. If you're never trying anything, you wouldn't even know that to begin with. So it's amazing how much progress you can make as a person in a very short space of time if you do start trying things. And there might be people or things or thoughts that hold you back that you're not even aware of yet because you haven't made the conscious effort to say, right, I'm going to start doing this because it's something that I think is going to benefit me in some way. So just try shit and see what happens.
Just like Tom and his boxing at lunchtime. Try it. See if you like it. If not, go and grapple someone in the streets. That's what you do in Durham, innit?
More or less, yeah. Maybe a little bit further towards the Sunderland side, but, you know.
Right, all of the people that have messaged in and we've read your questions out this week, thank you very much for the kind words. I hope the show has helped this week in some way. Remember, if you've got a question, email bencoomber@gmail.com, put in the subject line podcast, and it will get thrown into the mix. As you've noticed, sometimes we can get a little bit behind on the questions. So if they've got a bit of a timestamp, yeah, sorry, it just happens like that. But do keep writing into the show if you've got a question. Awesome Supplements Daily Dose came up during the show. If you want to check that out, go to awesomesupplements.co.uk. We are getting so much incredible feedback from our vegan protein as well at the moment. If you haven't tried it, why not? By the way, and I probably shouldn't say this because Jack is absolutely going to kill me, but if you've yet to try Awesome Supplements Vegan Protein and you want to try a sample, we will ship you out a sample. Message us on like Facebook or our Instagram page and we'll send you out a sample. Because like I get it, right? You don't want to buy like a kilo of protein and for it to taste like ass. And I know, because I've tried nearly all of them, that most vegan protein powders taste like ass. So if you want to try our product before you buy it, I totally get that. Give us a message. By the way, we don't send the samples out instantly. Like we do them in batches, so you might have to wait like a couple of weeks or whatever. But we will send a sample out because I want to show you that what we're doing is incredible. And that's it. Tom and I think both individually on our personal development quick podcast, mentioned that some big things are coming with the BTM Practical Academy. We're not ready to let the cat out of the bag yet, so just keep poised. If you have any questions about that, just wait. We're obviously going to kind of announce it with what's happening. And quite often people message us and sort of say, you know, how can we support the show? How can we support what you're doing? How can we kind of give back? And for me, it's just keep sharing the show, keep engaging in it. Keep, recommending it to other people. If you haven't left us a review on iTunes, then please be an absolute legend and give us a review on iTunes. If you like something that we're doing, like, for example, Awesome Daily Dose, if you like something like that, what we're doing, refer it to someone else that you think can help people. That's all we really ask, because hopefully we are providing services and products that are helping people. But Tom, we'll shut up. We'll get out of here.
Yep, I think we're done. So thanks everyone for listening. It's always a pleasure.
Right, I will be with you Monday next week. Tom's shaking his head from my awful Geordie # accent, but don't worry about it. Tom's just jealous that he's not reached my level of Northernism.
It gets worse every time.
Is that a word?
Northernism? It gets worse every time.
Is Northernism a word?
Why not?
Let's make it a word. Right, that's it. We're done. Have an awesome day. Have an awesome week. I will see you on Monday. Goodbye. Hey everyone, Bainbridge Radio, episode number 303.